Story by Lolly Trap, The Measure of Moments. This happened in 2022 when I was 17 years old. I remember every single moment of it vividly, since it actually messed me over, because it happened to me during a test, so I have a big emotional attachment to it. One spring day in high school, we had a physics test that I actually studied for and put time into. Before the class started, I apparently drank a lot of liquid, because I really had to use the bathroom during the test. Therefore, I asked myself out. After being excused, I left my phone in the classroom to avoid cheating suspicions and started literally jogging to the restroom. I ran because I didn't want to take any time away from the test. I remember every step of the way, which bathroom I went to, which urinal I used, and which sink I washed my hands in. There was only one sink, but I don't want people to think I don't wash my hands. When I was done with the bathroom, I jogged back to the classroom, wasting no time. This whole process couldn't have taken any more than 4 to 5 minutes. Here's where it gets interesting. The teacher instantly started questioning me as soon as I stepped foot back into the classroom. Did you get lost? What were you doing in that bathroom? Were you trying to look up answers? She asked, as I was standing there completely confused and thinking to myself, I literally ran there and back. I didn't even have time to cheat. Naturally, I answered with visible confusion. No, I just went to the restroom and came back, and walked back to my seat while thinking, what the hell is wrong with her? What also confused me at the time was my classmates snickering during the interrogation, but I brushed it off for it being an awkward interaction. When I sat down, my friend jokingly asked me if I had taken a suffit and what I did for so long. Still visibly confused, I gave them the same answer. I just went to pee. We were told off to keep quiet, so nothing really happened until the time limit expired. When the teacher told us to hand in our papers, I was outraged at the fact that it happened so soon, since I didn't even get the chance to get halfway through the test. I didn't understand what was happening. Surely she, the teacher, misread or miscalculated the time. But when I looked around, everybody was acting normally and handed in their papers as asked, so I did the same. After that, I started asking my friends on what was happening, because I was genuinely mad at this point. They were confused as well, because they didn't understand what was wrong or what my problem was. They asked me to tell them honestly why I was gone for so long, so I told them my side of the story. My friends looked at each other, then told me that I was gone for about 20 to 30 minutes, and that everybody thought that I was just cheating and looking up answers while I was away. None of us understood what had happened, but they, not the teacher, believed me. I left my phone in the classroom, looked genuinely confused, and they knew this isn't some sensitive topic I would lie about to them. The part that convinces me, and my friends, that I had skipped time is the fact that this only happened to me once and so far, never again. If it were a common occurrence, it would mean that I have some kind of memory-impairing disease. So this does appear to be a universal instance where when you're in high school or even middle school, if you go to a bathroom break, even if it's not a test, like during a test, your teacher will, when you come back, interrogate you, like put you under a bright light, like in the Seinfeld episode where Jerry's being interrogated by Newman and those mailmen, man, they mean serious business, right? It seems like teachers have this sense of power that comes over them, and they should just relax a bit, okay? Just because we spend a bit of time in the bathroom doesn't mean that we're cheating, okay? Relax. I am very happy that I was homeschooled after the first year of high school in Canada. Yeah, just went homeschooled. And really, by homeschooled, I mostly just played RuneScape and learned English via that and economics, I guess, some economics. Strange childhood, but I love it. But onto time loss, I always think alien abduction. I mean, it is the classic sign of alien abductions, alien nefariousness, or, just goofing around. They do love their time mechanics. It doesn't necessarily mean that this was an abduction, but then you ask yourself, how do they pull that off in a high school? Although, I guess it was during class, so there probably weren't a lot of other people or other students roaming the hallways and in the bathrooms. So given that, And then you also wonder about those instances where it seems like there are humans that aren't behaving quite right. Maybe they're scouts to target certain people, maybe isolated. Maybe there are specific people, maybe with a certain DNA, genetic makeup, mindset, however you want to square it, that they need to examine further for some reason. Interesting idea. But yeah, if it wasn't aliens, then the universe just broke. That is also classic. Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 9 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. My favorite one involves quite the flash. Let's get to it. Story by Liam J. Carter, Where Flashes Burned. A few years ago, my ex and I decided to take a very short trip up the road from our house to grab McDonald's. This is, of course, something we would do often, as luckily, or unluckily, depending on how you see it, McDonald's was about 3/4 of a mile from where we lived. What happened on the way back, however, still gives me a little chill, and I really can't explain why. As we made the journey back, we used an old familiar section of road known locally as the Bar, a long twisting section of quite fast road lined with tall trees that gently sweeps left to right a few times before reaching the town where we lived. About halfway down the Bar, there were 2 flashes of light that seemed to totally overwhelm the otherwise clear and fairly bright afternoon. I remember my view out of the car was completely sheet white for a second, whilst my mirrors glared back at me, like the sun itself was behind us, which solidified in my mind that the light had come from all around. The 2 flashes lasted no more than probably half a second each, and happened probably half a second apart. For some reason, rather than the usual reaction I would expect of, "What was that?" or, "I didn't expect lightning today," my ex and I immediately broke down in tears. My ex's first reaction was indeed to say, "What was that?" but absolutely screaming. My feeling, on the other hand, still genuinely crying, was that the air had completely left my lungs, and I was frozen solid with fear. As if I didn't want to move or look around as I was afraid of what I might see. The panic continued to the end of the road, where eventually we just stopped talking, pulled up to the house, and sat in the car for a minute. For some reason, merely 2 flashes of light had struck such unimaginable fear into us that it left us simply unable to talk about what had happened. I still drive down that road a lot and think about what happened every day regardless. In some ways, I'd love for it to happen again to know I'm not crazy, yet at the same time, I'd be fine if it never happened again. Nobody needs to feel that sort of fear. It was utterly spine-chilling. Anyway, that's my story. I just had to put it somewhere. You know, I've also felt great fear after purchasing McDonald's before. The great fear was that the nuggets weren't in the bag. Still had the fries, but man, that is terrible. Or when the sweet and sour sauce isn't available, or just they forgot to add the sauces to the bag, that is just a travesty. It's unacceptable. Come on. But again, the fear to me indicates alien abductions. I do like to harp on them, but I can't help it. Or it could just be space-time portals, but usually those aren't associated with flashes, and they also don't invoke much fear, if any, really, because most people don't even notice them happening. In this case, whatever did happen to you was so apparent that it activated your lizard brain. To me, this feels like a suppressed memory event, where your higher order brain is trying to push down what truly transpired, and so it just created these flashing lights events. There wasn't necessarily time missing in this case, though, so that is an element where if anything did happen to you, it didn't take very long, so that's probably a good thing, I would say. Thankfully, you had McDonald's to enjoy after this, so it's not all bad. Story by Nightshade Patel, The Blanket's Wisdom. Okay, I mean, I believe in spirits and different energies, but never have really bought the idea of Hollywood-type horror. This all happened when I was a kid, I mean, maybe 6 or 7. I remember my mom was going through her divorce and I was living with my grandma at the time, as she didn't want me in all the bullcrap she was probably going through. This was unfortunately a time when I was in a really sad and a vulnerable state, as I would often ask my grandma, why won't Mom come see me? And why is everyone saying that no one wants me anymore? I would often hear that from school kids as they would make fun of my family situation. I was new in school. I felt alone and almost hopeless that I'd have my mom again. Moving on. One night, I was sleeping next to my grandma and I woke up to a really terrifying sound, almost not earthly and uncanny. I opened my eyes, and right there on the side of the bed, this thing was sitting. This damn thing, I don't know what it was. It resembled a woman, but not a woman. It had long hair, and it was so dark that I could see it through the dark room. I froze in my bed and was so shook that I couldn't blink my eyes for a good minute. I think my eyes started watering. Under the sheets, I tried with my other arm, slowly, to get close to my grandma's arm and start poking it hard. I mean, as hard as a kid me could. And suddenly, I felt like stickiness on my fingers. I thought I had made a hole in my grandma's arm. She didn't respond, almost like she was gone. Seeing no hope, I just closed my eyes and started praying. I felt silence and nothingness. I opened my eyes to nothing. Whatever it was gone. Nothing there. Next thing I know, I woke up, went to my grandma, hugged her, and asked her about yesterday, and she just said, "Honey, you didn't sleep with me last night." What the hell? I know it was real, because I had my grandma's hair in my hand. I had short hair at that time. I still remember what that thing kept muttering the entire time in its ghastly, disgusting voice. Ka-hum-hum. What is that? What does it mean? My grandma brushed it off, thinking that maybe I was dreaming. I was terrified. I know it wasn't a dream as to where her hair came from. Why did it feel so real? I genuinely had my grandma sleep with me in my room. I remember one time I did hear someone call my name in the guest room and kitchen a few times. The voice would often sound like my grandma. Whenever I would answer, nothing. I would go to my grandma to ask if she called me, but no, nothing. Told me to not answer it back, as some negative energy can latch onto me. See guys, this was not the last time stuff like this has happened to me. Actually, it is kind of ongoing. What does that ka-hum-hum mean? I have searched through the internet, but have found nothing. That thing was not speaking any language or anything, just that phrase again and again. I'm in my 20s now and still don't know what the hell that means. Story by Jersey Girl 2112. Within the generic world. From 2023 to 2025, I worked at a place I'll call Place A. It was in a shopping plaza with one of those big signs out front listing all the businesses. For years, the sign had Place A's name in its own company font logo. In 2025, we got bought by a corporate company, so we became Company B. A few months later, the landlord updated the entire plaza sign because other businesses had moved in too. They removed all the custom logos and made every business name the same plain font. So for months, I'd drive to work every day seeing Company B in the new generic font. It became normal. Then one Monday, as I was driving to work, something felt off. It's hard to describe. I almost felt disconnected, like everything was real but didn't quite feel real. I pulled into the shopping plaza, looked up at the sign and froze. Every business was back in its original font. Place A's name was back exactly how it used to be, with the original logo/font, like the entire sign had reverted. I remember thinking, I should take a picture because this is crazy. But this is the part that still bothers me. It wasn't just that I decided not to. It felt like I shouldn't. The thought came into my head, but at the same time, it felt like some part of me was saying, don't. It's not necessary. I can't explain it. I just accepted it, went into work, and never mentioned it to anyone. Tuesday, our company was closed, so I was off. When I came back Wednesday, I looked at the sign immediately. Everything was back to normal. Company B generic font. Exactly how it had been for months before. I've looked at that sign almost every shift since, and it's never changed again. I know people will say I misremembered or my brain filled it in, maybe. But I also know what I remember seeing, and I've never had another experience like it. the strangest part isn't even the sign. It's that overwhelming feeling that I wasn't supposed to take a picture, or didn't need to. Story by Exploring the World. Next to the Road of Shadows. I was in Big Bend over the weekend, and I had a couple weird encounters I can't shake, and wondering if anyone else has anything similar happen to them. The first evening, we were driving back from dinner, and I wanted to take some photos of the stars, and decided to pull over in a little pullout on the side of the road. I get out, and grab my camera equipment and start to set it up, when I hear what sounds like a step behind me. It was a very slow step that didn't sound like something an animal would have made. I yelled, "Hello!" and turn around and look around me, and my girlfriend freaks out and tells me to get in the car, so I rush back into the car, equipment all in hand, and rush to drive off. I didn't see anything looking around me, but I did get a really uneasy feeling in the pit of my stomach. I was going to potentially stop somewhere else a few miles down, but I couldn't shake the feeling and just went back to the hotel. Then the next night, as we were driving to dinner, something unusual happened as well. We had been watching some sunset views in the park, and then drove to a pizza place afterwards to get some dinner, so it was dark by the time we were heading over. On the drive over, I noticed something on the side of the road that looked like a pure black figure, but wasn't really sure what it was. My mind had been playing tricks on me at night, thinking plants were humans or animals, so I kinda just figured it was that again, until my girlfriend said, "I think that was a person." I never even mentioned seeing the figure, but knowing she noticed it too made me question if it was really just another plant mind trick. I asked her about it, and she felt very confident it was a person. She was in the passenger seat on the side closer, so she definitely got a better look than me and was convinced it was a person. I was not so sure, so we decided to drive past our hotel and check the spot on the way back to see if it was still there or not. Well, we drive back and nothing to be seen. It was either an animal or human or something else that was moved. Weird stuff. Story by Blobber Vanille. At the Edge of Seeing. It was a warm summer night, around 10 to 11 p.m., and I went out into the garden with my dog one last time before going to bed. As we came back inside, and I was about to close the front door, a light outside suddenly started flashing relatively fast. About half a second off and half a second on, or even less. What I did next surprised me a bit, because I usually feel rather uncomfortable outside in the dark, but I went back out to see what that light was. Without shoes or socks, I stepped outside and looked up to see where the light was coming from. Nothing was visible, but the source of the flashing was right above my house. I backed further away from the front door to get a better view over the roof, and at the exact moment I would have seen it, the flashing stopped, and it was pitch black again. The whole thing lasted about 20 to 30 seconds, and there was no sound. The flashing wasn't just a localized spot or anything. Everything around me was alternating between bright and dark, and the source of it was right above my roof, except I couldn't see anything. I don't have street lamps, cables, or anything like that next or above my house. There is absolutely nothing above my roof. And it was definitely not inside the house, because the entire night sky was lit up. I can only describe the flashing as a technical blinking, just without any visible technology. What I still don't understand to this day is that it stopped at the exact moment I looked and would have discovered the source, as if it didn't want to be seen. I wasn't afraid, which is unusual for me in the dark, but instead I felt pure curiosity. To this day, I can't explain what it was, and I have never experienced it again. Story by Scalonians Chosen, by Darkness Invited. About 15 years ago in the middle of summer, I was hanging out with friends on Venice Beach. It was about 9 p.m. when we got there. We decided to walk to Santa Monica Pier, not for any particular reason, just burning time and hanging out. I remember it was me, my friend A, and his friend M. They bought a bottle of Southern Comfort, and I was stuck being the designated driver, so I was sober for the walk. On our way down the beach, all the shops and restaurants were closed or closing, so the area was starting to clear out. those who know the area know there's a row of housing once you clear the tourist section. About 40 minutes in, a building caught our attention. In my memory, I remember it sticking out from the fancier housing. It was flat-faced and had a few windows on the second story and a single door in the front. The door, however, was slightly raised from the ground, as if the steps had been removed, so you had to take a big step up to get to it. The door, I remember, was also rather narrow, so it couldn't have been a business. The house itself I remember being a dark salmon color, but it could have been lighter since it was lit by street lamps. The door was open. There were no signs and no one around, but we were curious and looked in. It was a long foyer, made narrow by vanities and cupboards lined up against both walls. The vanities and cupboards had all sorts of trinkets on them, and Christmas lights hung along the now hallway. Against our better judgment, we entered. I was first, being the sober one, followed by A and then M. At this point, they sobered up pretty quickly as we walked further into the house. Black lights covered the room, and there were music boxes and toys scattered along the surfaces. I don't know why, but it felt like it took forever to get to the end as we walked. At the end, there was a door, and on the door was the only sign or indicator of any kind. It said, "Welcome to the dollhouse, please come in," with an arrow pointing at the doorknob. Now, I was born and raised in Cali, and I've seen some weird things, art projects, public performances, flash mobs, etc. This was strange, yes, but nothing that intimidated me, so I reached out and opened the door. The door opened about 2/3 of the way, and it led down a flight of stairs into darkness. Before any of us could say anything or even think about taking a step forward, a music box started playing. At that point, our fight or flight instinct kicked in, and all of us turned right around and fled back out toward the car. The whole way there, we didn't say anything, and they abandoned the bottle of Southern Comfort. We had no idea what that was, and for a moment it didn't seem real at all. Not a single person was there. There were all the weird decorations, a set of stairs leading down into darkness, and then a random music box. As we recalled the same details. After sleeping on it, A and I headed back to the beach, I believe no more than a few days later, to make sure of what we had seen. We took the same route. Both of us were sober and we couldn't find it. No weird, oddly placed house or business that we could have missed. No flyers for an art event, no construction, nothing. It was like it never happened. A and M had been a little drunk, but I was completely sober. I am still friends with A, and every once in a while we talk about it. We remember all the same details, right down to the music box playing. I even remember feeling and hearing the old hardwood flooring under my feet and the smell of dust. I have no idea where that was, or why it seemed that only we recall such a place. I've checked Google Maps and couldn't find anything resembling a building like that. Maybe it was some sort of art exhibition, or a crazy sex dungeon? What bothers me is we couldn't find a single building that even existed. The weird door would not pass safely, and there were no signs beside the one right at the end of the hall. My friend is a bit more of a mystic than me, and he suggested it could have been a pocket dimension. I am a reasonable person and I like to find logic in things. I am ready to accept any investigation I did could be faulty, but I have no answers. Yeah, this is probably an interdimensional sex dungeon, and it's just this house of like Hellraiser style insanity going on. I have such delights to show you. Or is it such delights or such sights? I think it is such pleasure, such delights, or something like that. Pinhead has a way with words, right? So that's his domain, and you stumbled upon it, and you got out, thankfully. Hopefully they don't come back for you. If you notice a portal opening in your room, that would be one time where you probably should run. Just saying. Story by Darknath78. It waited in cloth. To give some context, I am completely of sound mind. I have no history of memory issues or lost time, and I am very meticulous about my pockets. I always keep my keys, my wallet, and my transit card grouped together in my front left pocket. It's a hardwired habit. One morning, I took the bus to school as usual. When I got off the bus and sat down in my computer science class, I reached into my pocket and noticed my keys were missing. My wallet and transit card were still there, but the keys were gone. I spent the entire day looking for them. I retraced every single step of my day. I completely emptied my backpack, and I literally turned my pockets completely inside out in front of my friend and my teachers. They all witnessed that my pockets were 100% empty. I even called the school's front desk and the transit system's lost and found. And just to preempt the most logical explanation, I checked thoroughly, and there was absolutely no hole or tear in the lining of my pocket where the keys could have slipped and hidden temporarily. Besides, my keychain is massive and covered in random trinkets, so there is absolutely no way it could have just hidden in a tiny fold or gone unnoticed. By the evening, I had lost all hope of finding them. I walked back to the bus stop to head home. I plunged my hand into my left pocket to grab my transit card for the bus, and my fingers immediately wrapped around my keys. They were sitting right there, in the exact same spot they were supposed to be that morning. I had physically turned that specific pocket inside out hours before. There is absolutely zero physical or logical way they were in there all day. Story by Sephirim777, The Stillness of Two. I clean offices at night on the weekend and drive this particular road regularly late at night, and have for over 2 years. Tonight, however, I saw the weirdest thing. There were 2 men, above 6 feet tall, standing on the bridge. That's not super weird. 2 dudes on a Saturday night. However, they looked completely identical. Carbon copies of each other, and they were dressed as cowboys. Pearl white cowboy hats, long tan hide ponchos, brown pants and brown cowboy boots. And when I say they looked identical, it literally looked like a copy-paste of the same image. It was freaky how identical they looked. They were standing in the exact same way, looking over the bridge, hands on the rails with their right foot slightly in front of their left foot. Not moving a single muscle. They weren't talking to each other. They weren't holding anything in their hands. No phones, no car parked nearby. It's like they materialized out of nowhere. This is super out of place for this area, especially at night when it's going to be below 40 degrees tonight. This bridge is out of the way on the edge of town. There's not a single streetlight, so it's very dark and is a very long, steep walk up. The sidewalk is there for decoration, basically, for city code. There's literally nowhere to walk to on the other side, besides a police station. It would be very strange for them to park a car anywhere near there and walk up to look over a bridge that only has a view of a cinder pile. They were staring over the bridge, looking northwest with the most transfixed look, like they were looking at something but weren't moving a muscle. I don't know why I am convinced that they were looking at something in particular, but I swear they were looking at something, but it was pitch black out. What could they even see besides a road and some hills? They didn't react to my car, and I had not seen or driven by another car for over 15 minutes before I saw them, and then it was another 10 minutes before I saw another car after I saw them. But when I did drive past them, their ponchos waved slightly, in the exact same way, I swear. That was the only thing that moved. I drive that road regularly at varying times of day year-round. I have never seen anything like that. I feel like I was temporarily transported into a Twin Peaks episode. The feeling I got when I saw them felt like I had been transported to a different planet, but they were just standing there. I can't even describe how out of place it was. Were they ghosts? Twins who like to play dress up? Do I need to check myself into a hospital? Like, what's going on? Now time for the jokes of the day. A man goes to a dermatologist with a rare skin disease. The doctor says, "Try a milk bath." So the guy goes to the grocery store and tells the dairy manager he needs enough milk to take a bath. The dairy guy asks, "You want that pasteurized?" "Nah," the man replies, "up to my chin ought to do." Pasteurize. So dumb. Man. Judge, 60% of my parking tickets are bogus. Judge, repeat infractions? Fine, 3/5 of my parking tickets are bogus. The weatherman who developed the heat index passed away yesterday. He was 88, but felt like 95. Today is my son's 4th birthday. When he came out of his room this morning, I didn't recognize him at first. It was as if I'd never seen him before. I think it's a great idea to wear 2 different deodorants, one under each armpit. But that's just my 2 cents. More glitches up here, check them out, and I'll see you next time.